Howdy, howdy!
Good day, good people.
And welcome to
But It Was
Aliens! The paranormal comedy podcast where we probe paranormal activity to decide for the questionable benefit of humanity whether that activity really was paranormal. My name is Mr. Kev in the John, and alongside me with no idea what we will be covering today is Mr. Granville Moonwalker.
The nicest podcaster you will ever hear.
On that note, today we are venturing to America, and I'm continuing this sentence purely so that Mr. Moonwalker doesn't drop an F yeah. You see, since becoming a father, I've realised a lot about this life. I think it's time that I clean up my act.
Bullshit.
The podcast is turning family friendly. No swearing, no alcohol, no R-rated, rated R content, no 18 content, no nothing. I'm just going to take a swig of my energy drink and then we shall begin. Ah! Shit! He stick a in my ass! Ah!
They do say that in moments of pain, your true self comes out. It would appear Kevin was like a cock in his ass.
We begin today's episode in Chicago.
Go!
Teresita Basa.
City.
Teresita Basa was born in 1929 and had come to America in the 1960s as an immigrant from the Philippines to study music.
America is a great film. Really sorry to interrupt you there.
But life happened, and Teresita ended
Also,
up...
it's coming to America, not come to America. I do apologise for interrupting you again. Please continue.
Life happened, and Teresita...
Her or you?
Life happened, and Teresita ended up as a respiratory therapist, in fact. You got me on edge now. Teresita would find employment at the Edgewater Hospital.
Where did she sit?
In Chicago. On a chair.
Teresita where?
The passion
Teresita from who?
never left Teresita, though. Teresita would pursue a master's degree in music and would teach local neighbourhood children the piano for free just for the passion. I'm just going to be frank here. Hello, I'm Frank. Sorry, couldn't help myself. No. On a serious note, we are a light-hearted podcast, so I've decided not to cover Teresita's background in detail, but I did read some accounts which indicated that Teresita experienced some relationship trauma in her younger days. Teresita was polite and respectful and loved being with her friends, but didn't really pursue romantic relationships, and Teresita's friends at the hospital were quite protective of Teresita. On the night of the 21st of February 1977, Teresita had been on the phone to her friend Ruth for about 30 minutes. Teresita told Ruth that a friend was coming round that evening, but Teresita didn't name the friend. This was the last time that anyone would speak to Teresita alive. An hour later, firefighters were called to Teresita's home after neighbours had contacted services complaining of smoke. When the firefighters arrived, not long after 10 p.m, something wasn't right. Well, there had been a little fire on a mattress, sure, but something was also off. The crew searched the apartment and, in moving the mattress, discovered Teresita's naked body hidden under the mattress. This was arson and possibly worse. The nudity indicated sexual assault. The body had a knife sticking out of the chest. This was murder. The only clue was a note at the property stating, "Get theatre tickets for AS." AS.
Ass.
Get theatre tickets for ass. That's a story of my life, in fact.
Mine too, almost. Ooh. It's pretty dark.
Yeah.
I kind of don't want to joke.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's not a particularly pleasant series of events, so we'll try and keep it serious for the start.
I suppose whoever murdered her decided to
Take
hide the
theatre
body
tickets.
under the
Mattress.
mattress and then
Yeah.
cause the fire, hoping it would get
Yeah.
rid of the evidence.
Mm-hmm. But it didn't
And-
burn too good, presumably.
I suppose they would have had to have started the fire, and then I suppose, yeah, they would have had to have legged it, so they couldn't confirm whether the fire would have started as they would have hoped.
Yeah, because they set it and ran and
Yeah.
couldn't stay around to watch. Otherwise, hey, what are you doing watching this fire?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think you would guess that Get Theatre Tickets for AS could point you to who this person was.
Someone with the initials AS.
Yeah, however, the initials AS could be anybody.
Yeah, or anything.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying it was this, but it could have been Get Theatre Tickets for a shag,
Or
a student.
aliens, cyclones are sea. Fucking idiot.
Alien Cyclones
Alien
with an S.
symbiote or something like that. The film beginning with AS.
It could have been the
Psycho
name of the
begins with a
film.
P.
Oh,
I was about to say American Psycho begins with a P. What the fuck am I on about? American Sniper. There we go.
It could have been the name of the play.
Absolutely.
I was about to say Othello, but that's not an A. You got me at it now. The first hypothesis put together by the police was that this was a case of sexual assault and murder. The police had no idea who AS was, and this formed one focus of the investigation. Was AS a love interest that went very badly wrong? Another focus was Teresita's reported boyfriend, who it had been alleged by neighbours that Teresita had been arguing with outside the apartment recently. Oh, I forgot to say, true crime. Police spoke to work colleagues who generally protected Teresita, as we discussed. They confirmed that Teresita had been seeing a chap called Robert but wasn't in a relationship and was quite mindful of entering relationships, as we also covered. The friends also confirmed that Robert seemed a decent chap. They'd been out to dinner with Robert and Teresita to scope Robert out, you see, and so the police had nothing to suspect otherwise. Robert was off the hook and the case went cold.
Cold.
I'll just add there that I don't think I mentioned this in the research notes in the next couple of sections. When they analysed, they couldn't find evidence of sexual assault.
Okay. So what prompted them to think that? The fact that she was naked?
She was naked and had been murdered, yeah. Why would someone be naked with a knife sticking out of them?
What if the murderer was an artist?
What do you mean?
In terms of...
Creating an artistic murder
Yeah.
scene? Like some sort of twisted Dexter...
What they did...
Hannibal serial killer.
Is they like to draw the human form in certain situations, but need a muse. Therefore, they have to create this picture in their head for them to draw it, therefore do it physically.
That's pretty twisted and disturbing, but yeah, that's a possibility. I mean, obviously I do know where this one's going, so I don't want to give anything away. It may or may not be a serial killer.
Because I was going to say, I wouldn't say all serial killers do, but you have mentioned it a few times, Dexter. We do know that they like to have trophies. So therefore, the artist would have pictures of this.
There's a
and
particular
that
type of killer that will take a trophy, yeah.
That is their trophy to relive the murder. They have that picture. Therefore, they can constantly relive it through the art.
Like Ed Kemper with his skulls and whatnot.
Predator with their skulls.
Not sure Predator was your traditional serial killer, but suppose it loosely
Trophy.
fits the description. Just sussed out Predator's whole psyche. It wasn't about hunting the strongest things and part of their culture. Predator was just a dark and twisted killer.
I was going to say, what if Robert actually wasn't his real name? But then, if she wasn't not keen on relationships, but didn't want to have relationships that often, the fact that his name...
Very cautious, I think it would be fair to say, and just loved spending time with all her friends. Really well thought of lady.
I was going to say, if someone came to you and said that their real name was such and such, but they like to be called this, could potentially bring up a red flag. Although, I suppose in the past, it's not that odd. So in my GP referral role, I tend to deal with a lot of the elderly population and find that they like to be called names that have fuck all to do with their actual name.
My granddad, who is no longer with us, bless him, went by the name Spike. Everyone knew him as Spike. His name was Norman, I believe.
Like, this is no one's actual name. I'm just throwing it out there. For example, someone that was called Dave and liked to be called Dave, but his name was fucking Albert. And in no part of his name was Dave. So...
yeah, I can't piece that one together.
it happens so much. Like, I'll get, like, the referral notes and everything like that, and I'll be like... and when I need to call them, oh, they like to be called this. And then... sometimes I forget to look at the notes before calling them and just see their actual name. And then I'll say, is this person there? And I go, no, sorry. I'm like, what? I've got the right number. And I go, oh, sorry, is this person there? And I go, yeah, let me go get them. It's really weird.
Old people be crazy. Teresita's co-worker at the hospital, Remi Chia, also from the Philippines, did not know Teresita particularly well at all. But a few months after Teresita's death, something strange started happening to Remy.
Remy Ma.
Remy began feeling uncomfortable at work. A weird feeling would come over Remy, almost like she was being watched or wasn't the only person in a room. One day at work, Remy was in a room by herself when, as she turned, she saw the figure of Teresita flash in front of her before disappearing. Remy did the sensible thing and legged it home.
Didn't tell anyone. Just left work.
Precisely, hold that thought. For when you see a ghost and leg it home, not many managers are supportive of that. When Remy started joining conversations with Teresita's friends, telling them what Teresita liked or how Teresita felt about things, people started souring on Remy further. People saw it as disrespectful, but Remy felt compelled to share, and it wasn't as if she was lying. Remy could feel these things, almost as if they were her own feelings. Remy was called into the office and ended up getting released due to this. Remy actually wasn't too annoyed about this though, because she just felt so weird at the hospital by then. It was almost good to get away.
You said that at one point she was compelled to share. Do you reckon if they had more Bibles, she wouldn't have done?
If she had 10 Bibles.
Or a stack. So what we're saying is she is channeling Teresita here. Channeling her feelings. Is Remy like a super empath?
Possibly.
An empath to the ghost realm.
Possibly.
If Remy is able to feel the thought, well, not necessarily the thoughts,
the force,
but the feelings of ghosts, how do we know, or how does she know, what feelings are actually hers?
That is a phenomenal question. I guess she can't.
Is she a real person?
Is Remy a real person?
Yeah. Does she have real thoughts and feelings? Or is she just a conduit?
Her whole life she's been feeling other people's feelings, you mean? She's an empty vessel for the spirits. Who put her there?
Good question.
Well, this case has taken a turn.
I was about to say, I think we need to delve a little bit deeper.
home, things continued. Remy would begin feeling the presence of Teresita and mumbling in her sleep. This meant that we have a witness. Remy's husband, Dr. Jose C. Chua Jr., aka Joe, who himself was a colleague and known to Teresita, would hear these murmurings and wonder what the F was going on. It wouldn't be long before Joe's wondering would hit new levels of what the F.
David Blaine.
5 months after Teresita's death, one night, whilst Remy was asleep, Joe walked into the bedroom to find Remy laid back down flat on the bed, arms by her side, eyes wide open and white. Remy begun sleep-talking. Well, I say sleep-talking. Remy begun speaking in a voice that was not her own, in a language native to the Philippines that Joe could also speak. The voice said,
Ikaw, with Teresita Basa.
Basically, Remy was taken over by someone claiming to be Teresita.
This spirit being, whatever it was, claiming to be Teresita, did they take over the body of Remy beforehand? Or did they take over as Joe entered the room? Because they took over beforehand, what's the point? You're laying there just staring at the ceiling.
Maybe they were waiting.
Nothing to do, nothing to... because they're not moving the body itself. Whereas I suppose if they waited until Joe had got home, then it makes more sense. Or if there's a time limit on this possession.
Do you get a time limit on possessions?
I don't know. Never been possessed or
you?
done a possession.
How would you know?
It's a very good point. Maybe I have been. Tell me, being, creature, whatever you are that has possessed me in the past, is there a time limit?
You know when you've...
Yes!
You know when you've said that you've seen people that weren't there on occasion?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that is when you've been possessed and you're seeing the people that are possessing you beside you.
Why would I see them beside me?
Why wouldn't you?
Because they've possessed me.
Yeah, but you've ventured into your own mind, whereas they've taken the driving seat.
Then why would I see them beside me?
Because you're in your mind, not seeing reality.
Okay.
That made sense.
Really didn't. Sleepy curve.
We said that through Remy, the voice had said,
Ikaw with Teresita Basa.
this was basically saying that it was Teresita and that she had been murdered. Teresita stated that she had been murdered by a co-worker, an orderly at Teresita's hospital called Allan Showery. Teresita demanded that Remy go to the police with this information. Can you imagine going to the police with that? Hey, copper, I know I did the murder because I had a chat with the victim whilst in a trance. Give me a reward, baby! Just to reiterate, the voice coming out of Remy appears to be speaking to Remy. Unfortunately, when Remy awoke, she had no memory of this conversation, but Dr. Joe had heard it all. Joe knew that this shit was crazy though. Joe was a doctor with a reputation to uphold, so Joe did nothing. It wasn't like the voice was talking to Joe after all.
Okay, so I wonder if the spirit, if the spirit knows who they're trying to talk to, would wake up with no recollection of it. I'm guessing they wouldn't.
Yeah,
because
same.
You just wouldn't do that.
It'd be pointless, yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder if it's something she figured out afterwards.
Because it's a new spirit, maybe maybe they've been trying to like build their strength so that they can talk for all this time, getting stronger and stronger, like in Ghost, when he learns to kick the can and whatnot. And now it's like, I've got the power to do it, and then does it. Shit! Why doesn't she remember?
I can't talk to that person because they're consciously not there, therefore they won't remember it. Shit! I need to speak to Joe. Does it again. Joe, you fuckwit! Alan killed me.
Several days later, after no action had been taken, at night time Remy was on the phone. Suddenly, mid-call, Remy stopped, walked towards Joe, handed Joe the phone, and calmly said,
Teresita wants to come back.
Remy walked into the bedroom and Remy was visited. Again, the voice returned. This time, Teresita spoke to Joe directly through Remy, asking, Oi Joe, why you not been to the coppers yet, mate? Joe thought he'd go along with this madness because honestly, if he didn't, who knows if this would have escalated. Joe responded, explaining that Joe had no evidence so nobody would believe it. Joe couldn't go to the police. Teresita listened to Joe's excuse and responded, explaining that Allan Showery had taken some of Teresita's jewellery and given the jewellery to Alan's girlfriend. Joe agreed to go to the police with this information and contacted detectives Joe Statula and Lee Eplin. I don't know why I decided to make the voice semi-Australian there. / New Zealander.
So, Teresita's come back and has asked Joe.
Worked out that Remy weren't going to remember. So did exactly as you suggested. Came back and spoke to Joe.
Why you not go, please, Joe?
Is she aware that Joe was in the room the first time and heard it? Or is she coming back this second time to ask Joe to go to the police? Because if it's the latter, then she shouldn't have asked him why he didn't go, because he didn't originally know.
Good question. I don't know if I can answer that. So I'm guessing that she did know Joe was there, but who knows how long she was talking to Remy before Joe walked in. And she just assumed that they could all hear her, and maybe she hadn't quite worked it out, but she realised Remy didn't go to the police, so she was asking Joe this time.
Or she may, before figuring out that Remy didn't remember, she may have thought, why haven't you gone to the police, is in both of you?
Yeah.
Why am I figuring this out like I'm in?
This happened. This legitimately happened.
Okay, so Joe goes to the police. Joe goes to Popo.
Indeed. Do you think the Popo are going to be receptive to this information?
I think it depends.
On?
They're either going to think he is a nutter and they're going to leave it, or they're going to go and investigate it, but they're going to think, why do you know what he's got?
Yeah.
Were you part of it?
Yeah, that's where my mind went.
So if they do investigate it, they'll investigate it and then come back round to why do you know?
As you can imagine, the police didn't really know what to do with this information. A lady is solving her own murder from beyond the grave. Whispers of the dead. Listening to that has got to be like a monkey paw scenario. The police, though, thought F it and begun looking into Allan Showery. They didn't have any other leads, and this probably wouldn't go anywhere either, right? Allan, it turned out, lived pretty close to Teresita, and indeed, according to workers at the hospital, Allan had arranged to go round to Teresita's on the night of her death to repair Teresita's television. It turns out that Allan would often do odd jobs for Teresita, and Teresita would always pay Allan rather well. Allan was brought in for questioning. Once with the detectives, Allan admitted that he'd gone round to Teresita's to fix the TV, but he left as Allan didn't have the right equipment for the job. The police were very suspicious by this point. Allan was the last to see Teresita alive after all, and so the police went to visit Allan's pregnant girlfriend, Yanka Kalmuk. The police asked Allan's girlfriend if Allan had given her any jewellery recently. Surely Allan wouldn't be so stupid. Yep, he was. The jewellery was inspected by friends of Teresita, and some of the jewellery was indeed confirmed to belong to Teresita.
What?
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing that this murder was local and public news.
Whoa.
I mean, to the point that work colleagues and everyone knew about it. Therefore,
I guess it was the 70s in Chicago.
I'm just thinking
Big
him
place.
not going to the police and telling them that he saw her that day now makes them way more suspicious of him.
Mm.
Like, whereas if he would have said from the start,
Like he'd have come forward voluntarily.
Then not advocating that I want him to get away with it if he's done it. But
Well, the moment he did that, they'd have probably looked into him and...
yep. And then could have just gone, okay, it wasn't you or such and such. But him hiding it. Although, to be fair, I mean, he's not really going to think that a ghost is going to crack the case. And
5 months in, he's thinking he's got away with it.
yeah. He's going to get snitched. Well, it's not even snitched on. He's going to get pulled up by a ghost.
Lady Karma has some mysterious ways, my friend. The police returned to Allan with confirmation that Allan's girlfriend had Teresita's jewellery, and Allan folded. He confessed. He did it. Why I oughta?
Son of a bitch.
Allan claimed that after he left Teresita's apartment, Allan planned to return and rob Teresita, as he now knew the layout. Allan had been having some money issues, which is probably why he was always on the hunt for odd jobs. When Allan returned, Teresita was still there and let Allan in, and so Allan said that he attacked Teresita, and a knife ended up in Teresita. Allan said that he removed Teresita's clothes to make it look like a sexual assault to cover up what really happened, which nearly worked. Allan hid the body under a mattress and set it on fire to try and obscure the evidence further.
If she was such a nice person and he was in trouble, why did he not? I suppose it depends how much he's in trouble for. But if she was so nice, he could have asked.
She was nice, but she was also vulnerable. And I'm guessing...
could have explained his situation rather than going in to rob her and end up killing her.
You can't justify this, can you? He's
No,
obviously
not
a
at
piece of shit for doing it. Like, regardless how bad life is. When this headed towards court, Allan initially tried to have the case thrown out because the evidence was all paranormal in origin. Allan also claimed that the police threatened to arrest his pregnant girlfriend if Allan didn't confess, and so Allan retracted his initial confession. The police countered that the way Allan quietly came with them without argument when approached indicated Allan's guilt. After an initial mistrial, on February the 23rd, 1979, Allan eventually pleaded guilty to the murder of Teresita. Allan was sentenced to 14 years in prison. Allan was released on parole in 1983 after around 4 years, as far as I could find, and went on to live a quiet later life. It's not my place to comment on criminal matters, punishments and the like, but 4 years for killing someone, regardless of motive, is slightly bonkers to me, being that it's not even half the sentence. But as I say, it's not my place and I don't know all the details. With Allan behind bars, Teresita could rest in peace, and Remy appears to have been left to get on with her own life. Before we ask some questions, to summarise where we're at this point, what we've established today is that a lady has solved her own murder.
When you mentioned the years and you were like 79 and sentenced to 14 years and released in 83, I was like, whoa. I was like, the math ain't mathing.
Yeah.
4 years.
Yeah, for killing someone completely innocent. Bonkers, isn't it?
That's disgusting. I wonder if the case being solved actually did put Teresita's soul to rest.
Mm-hmm.
Or is she now Remy? Remy is a conduit.
Yeah.
So is she now...
Teresita.
Or does she live within? It's like she is a hotel for ghosts.
They pop in to visit Earth and attend to their business and then pop off. The next one pops in like an Airbnb.
That's it.
What a fascinating idea.
And then again, at any one point, are you ever really you?
You could explain a lot of people's behaviour in that way when someone just switches up and completely goes crazy for a night. No, but your first point, that's once a spirit has been inside you, how do you know you're you anymore? How do you know they're not just the spirit and the spirit has assumed that life and Remy's locked in a box somewhere deep within her subconscious?
Mm-hmm. Being John Malkovich, for example. Similar to that. Fantastic film. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it.
What if Teresita has been around forever and moves from body to body? The obvious question here is whether the spirit of Teresita returned to solve her own murder, or whether Remy, or perhaps even Joe, had some prior knowledge of Teresita's death. At least one account I read suggested that Allan had made complaints about the quality of Remy's work, and remember, Remy had the same job as Teresita and knew of her and likely what had happened to an extent, even though Remy wasn't besties with Teresita and the crew. There are also suggestions that Allan's own legal team suggested that Remy was the murderer and sold Allan the jewellery, but Remy was never considered a suspect by the police. It could also be that Remy and Joe heard something or heavily suspected Allan, A.S., but were scared or didn't want to be snitchers, so tried to come up with a workaround to see justice. So if fake, this could have been for the best of reasons. Remy and Joe did later go on to give their accounts to journalist Carol Mercado, who wrote a book about the events, but Remy and Joe also continually asked to be left alone and did not try to make money from these events. This case actually featured on the April 25th, 1990 episode of Unsolved Mysteries, despite the fact that it was solved. The paranormal solving itself is the unsolved mystery. I guess as we get ready to summarise, we're left asking, did Remy and Joe fake it for gain? Did they fake it for justice? Was it faked to cover their own involvement? Did Remy experience visions due to some kind of condition? Or was this completely legitimate?
Now you've mentioned those, I am inclined to believe that it's possibly for justice.
Yeah, I hear you.
I suppose at no point did Teresita take over Remy in the company of anyone other than Joe.
Yeah.
And...
that I know of.
Yeah, that is true. And
but
also,
she was saying things, and this is documented far better than what we've covered in some other accounts, that she was saying things to colleagues and friends of Teresita that she shouldn't/couldn't have known.
But until we know what things they are, they both work together. They might not have been best friends, but they may have had these conversations. They may have spoken
more than people realised.
Yeah.
They had a potentially similar cultural background, both being from the Philippines.
Mm-hmm. The fact that they also didn't try and make any money from it afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, okay, we'll tell you, but like, leave us alone.
Yeah.
We don't want any money. We don't want any fame from it. And the fact that he owned up. I don't believe the fact that, although...
If they were involved, surely he would have pointed the finger at them to try and get himself off somehow. Although he did try to point the finger at Remy and say it was her completely.
But it's not that. It's... I can't believe, but at the same time I can believe that the police would have threatened to arrest his girlfriend, considering she had the jewellery. But the fact that he kind of came out and confessed to it all so easily. Because I'd also go, well, you've got no proof that she stole it. She has it, but you're not going to find evidence of her being there. So how did she steal it? But he came out and confessed to doing it. So I think he did it and they done it for justice.
Yeah, my mind's in a similar kind of place.
Although we may have just concluded without the summary.
So, in summary, we've met Teresita Basa, a Chicago resident from the Philippines who was by all accounts a lovely lady but who was sadly murdered in February 1977. The police had no suspects. 5 months after Teresita's death, the wife of co-worker Dr. Jose C. Chua Jr., Remi Chia, begun receiving information about Teresita whilst in a trance. This led to Remy losing her job, but eventually led to the questioning of a suspect named Allan Showery and a confession, meaning that the spirit of Teresita solved her own murder. Allan had given Teresita's jewellery to his girlfriend and was convicted. That is today's probe, swiftly summarised. Mr Moonwalker, do you want to go back over anything before we conclude?
Just a little note on the jewellery.
Yep.
It's quite possible that them working with each other all the time, she would have noticed and picked up what her jewellery looked like.
And could have seen Allan with his girlfriend.
And then gone, hold on.
Maybe that's it. Yeah.
Such and such as jewellery.
Good theory. So are you saying that it was spookies?
He maybe also could have got mad that she decided to pay him with theatre tickets and not money. Not spookies. In terms of angry that Teresita wanted to pay him with theatre tickets instead of money, not Remy.
Yeah, well, apparently she always generally paid him pretty generously.
That's what I mean, but this time she was like, oh, let me get you some theatre tickets because it'll be nice. But him needing money was like, what the fuck?
Maybe they were really pally and they were going to go to the theatre together.
Who knows?
But he just, he was in bad times himself and was looking for an easy escape and chose the wrong option. Well, this case is bonkers because it's true. It's sometimes hard for us to cover cases involving horrid circumstances like this without slipping into the inappropriate, so hopefully we didn't offend anyone, but I personally don't believe in ghosts, despite having possibly once summoned one, so I find it hard to believe this one. I think it's more likely, kind of as we covered, that Remy or Joe knew Allan was involved but didn't want to get themselves in trouble, so came up with a way to ensure justice was served. Having said that, it's also really hard to come up with logical explanations as to how Remy knew so much about Teresita when she barely knew her, so I don't begrudge anyone believing this one. But yeah, now that you've said it about the jewellery, that's a bloody good theory. Yeah, I think Remy and Joe had seen something or kind of had a very strong hunch at the very least that it was Allan. And so tried to point the police in the right direction.
Maybe he was acting weird at work afterwards.
They thought if they just went to the police and said, we think it's this guy with no evidence or whatever, then police wouldn't believe them. So they came up with a story they thought might convince the police, and lo and behold, it actually worked.
Or even if they said that and they just looked into it, then it could do something. And it worked.
Any final thoughts, Mr Moonwalker, before we wrap it up?
No.
Then that is a wrap for today. Thank you, folks, for listening to But It Was Aliens. If you want to support the show, then you can absolutely do that. Head on over to the darkest corner of the internet, which you can find at patreon.com but it was aliens. And there, if you become a patron of the show, you will discover that each month we release bonus episodes we call Side Probes. In those darkest of probes, we explore the crazier of this world's mysteries, conspiracies, and telepathic sexual deviance. You can gain access to these episodes for quite literally less than a cup of coffee. You can share episode suggestions with us on the X Twitter.
On the Twitter.
At But It Was Aliens. You could also say hello on Facebook, where connected to But It Was Aliens is a secretly public private group called Extraterrestrial Towers. Being a member of Extraterrestrial Towers grants you protection from the aliens when they invade. Legally, we can't claim that last statement is true, but you can rest assured that you will be protected. That is it for this episode, so until next time, is a hot cross bun cross because it's hot? The truth is up there. #Pro